Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Malcolm. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at IDfy, and thanks again to everyone for taking out the time. So, I think everybody is, of course, I'm sure, on some form of a privacy journey, given uh, rules are out and in some sense, the clock is ticking. There are, of course, as we ourselves have worked with a lot of our customers through our platform Privy, we've got a ringside view of this, and it's of course clear there are many paths to get this done, that are in front of an organization. But as we ourselves, and I'm sure several of you have looked at what is the understanding, learning, and literature around this space in India, I think that's quite limited, right? Where do people stand? What it means in this market? What it could deliver for us or not? I think is quite limited. And in an endeavor to change that, I think we thought we would partner with like-minded sort of folks in the ecosystem to start putting out some thinking and literature in the space, and that's where our collaboration with the esteemed institution like MIT Sloan has come into being, which is what we're going to talk about today. The idea is, this is the first of its kind sort of study for this market, and we believe it comes at a pivotal time as people are beginning to think about this seriously, make serious investments, and commit to sort of this journey, right? Because in our minds, it's not a tick box, but it's actually a real transformation needed inside the organization. So the idea today is we'll share with you some of the findings from this joint research, which we had the privilege of doing along with our colleagues at MIT Sloan in India, and start some of this debate. We'd of course love for this to be an ongoing dialogue in this space over the next several months and beyond, not just the deadline, but beyond. And therefore, we also would love to keep this work together with MIT Sloan going as well. So, with that backdrop, I think the idea today is to go through a few of the findings from the joint research and survey, and then we'll get into a little bit of a panel discussion with a few esteemed panelists that we have here today that we'll introduce in a moment, right? Um, but with that, perhaps maybe while we get to the panelists in a bit, if I may request, that we'll probably start with sharing a few of the findings from the survey and the research work. And John, I'm going to request you to sort of lead that. We'll just get the slides up, and I'll hand it over to you in a few seconds. So, Mayuri or Anushka, could you get that up, please? Yeah, so I think, like we said, is the first of its kind insights and benchmark effort for this market. It's published, it's available online, it's available in a short book. Could you like it? Would love to share it around and get thoughts and ideas. If you go to the next slide, I think very quickly I'll talk about Privy and then I'll pass it on to you, John. So Privy is part of IDfy. IDfy has been around the last 14 years. We believe we're building sort of India's and Asia's sort of trust stack. We have been sort of Privy is one of our three platforms. It's an end-to-end sort of offering to enable enterprises deliver privacy and data governance. It's built on our deep understanding of PI in this country over several years. We've been one of the early to market and built an India for India sort of platform. And therefore, we've had the privilege to work with a few of the early adopters, enterprises in the space. We work closely with, you know, the government and a few other entities, as well as do activities like this to evangelize this notion of privacy and why is it important and why is it not just a tick box, right? That's what we hope to convey in this session. So with that, over to you, John, to take us through. Obviously, please introduce MIT SMR and then take us through some of the findings, please.
Thank you, Malcolm. So I'll begin with an introduction of MIT Sloan Management Review India. So our parent, MIT Sloan Management Review, has over 6 decades shaping global thinking on strategy, technology, innovation, and practitioner-led insights. It has a globally trusted voice with strong engagement across enterprises, policy forums, CXO communities, including in India. Specifically, through MIT Sloan Management Review India, global research and perspectives are contextualized for the Indian leaders, enabling decision-making across AI, digital transformation, and emerging technologies. Now, regarding the study, the scope, the respondents, I would like to invite Ashim, a member from our research team, to just take us through the could you go to the next slide? Yeah, to give an overview of the research. Ashim? Is Ashim there? Ashim, hello, can you hear me? Some problem? If not, then I will just take
Yeah.
us through the.
Yeah. Please go ahead,
Yeah.
John. I don't think you can.
Yeah, I think there is some problem with the audio attachment sent. Anyway, so more than we had an exact number of 78 CXOs who were surveyed across banking, financial services, and insurance, manufacturing, retail, IT, telecom, and e-commerce. Almost 87% of the organizations report annual global revenues exceeding $1 billion, and 75% of them have more than 20,000 on their rolls, and also 75% of the respondents were CBOs, head of data science and analytics. Now, the primary focus was on examining how large enterprises operationalize data privacy programs under India's DPDP Act. Then the core dimensions were assessing the maturity across government's models, consent management and privacy by design implementation. It also explored the intersection of privacy with risk management, customer experience, and future AI initiatives. The survey, I mean, the research utilized primarily survey responses and qualitative insights from C-suite leaders. It also employed three distinct maturity descriptors, that is manage, established, and optimized, to evaluate the depth of privacy controls. It also referenced global frameworks, including Europe's GDPR, USC, CPA, NIST, to provide comparative signals for Indian enterprise practices. And data collection primarily occurred between December and January, that is immediately after the DPDP rules were notified. That's it from my end. Malcolm, is somebody from your team?
Yeah. Nikhil, please go ahead.
Sure. Thanks, John. I think you laid down the methodology really well in terms of it being scientifically done and done for a certain size and scale of customers. Obviously, when we look at privacy-led implementations and the sort of thought process behind this, we do see regulatory sort of compliant organizations who are might already be sort of serving alternate regulation, or from a size perspective, we see that percolating faster. If I want to very quickly, obviously we'll go into the Q&A part of this discussion, but if I were to bucket the kind of insights we were able to sort of derive from this survey, we could bucket them into three headings. The first one is really looking at data privacy and data protection beyond just consent. We do see a lot of conversation in the Indian landscape, sort of talking about consent management and sort of really just consent capture. But what was really refreshing is that we got insights where people are actually really thinking about this problem statement not just as part of consent, but beyond, in terms of how do you look at third party risk, how does this percolate really throughout the ecosystem of your enterprise, right? That's one sort of data point we think sort of it really came out. The second one is, if I really look at wearing this hat of, when I try to lead this transformation internally, there seem to be many moving parts which are sort of owned by various parts of the enterprise, right? You have your sort of AI and data science teams, you have privacy teams, you have onboarding, and a bunch of other sort of actors, right? And they need to come together. Therefore, technology and automation seems to be one of the ways in which enterprises could benefit from, and that again is a great finding from this report. Lastly, the third piece which really sort of stood out for us is there's two hats of really looking at this transformation in the country, and which is expected now. We are almost 15 months away from that deadline. There's a sort of a quick and dirty way of doing this versus there's a real sort of valuable way where once you've done this transformation, you could actually create offshoots of revenue, you could build better trust. And that's the third sort of plank, right? Throughout our conversation with our panelists today, we will focus on these three themes. Lastly, I just want to leave with two or three core insights that we are hearing and seeing, given that we have a quick ringside view of early adopters for DPDPA in our country. It is really clear that point solutions which might be bolted on might not solve this problem, given that the enterprise landscape today has sort of legacy data. It has system architecture which is slightly outdated, as well as from a people and a skilling perspective, most technology business teams are unaware of what privacy or data protection really means, right? So with those 3 points that you see on your screen, that's a quick sort of takeaways and quick summary from not just the report but also from early adopters in the Indian landscape. And with that, I'll pass the ball back to Malcolm to take us through sort of enriched sort of Q&A session we have planned for the audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, John, and thank you, Nikhil, for taking us through that. And like I said, there's a longer this is a summarized insight. There's a longer report we'd love to share with all of you. It's online and on the website. We have on both sort of MIT SMRs and our sort of online properties as well. So with that, perhaps let's switch now to a little bit of Q&A with a few panel members we curated. John, I think you perhaps would like maybe a 30-second introduction. I know you dove straight into the presentation, but you'd like to perhaps just introduce yourself a little bit for a few seconds, and then we'll talk to Ruma, madam.
Thank you, Malcolm. So I'm the managing editor for MIT Sloan Management Review India. So yes.
Thank you. Madam Ruma, quick introduction, please, if you don't mind.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Ruma Day. I was with State Bank of India as the Deputy Managing Director and Group Compliance Officer. And towards the end, I was also in charge of the special projects for compliance and data protection. So a lot of good work has been done by SBI in this field, and I'll be happy to share some of the insights in this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And let's then dive into a few questions we have curated, and then we'll, of course, open it up to the audience for further questions. So maybe let's start with you, John. I think, of course, when we talk about the entire landscape of what needs to be done in a privacy program, I think there are many parts to it, right? I'll address some of those to Ruma, madam. But I think maybe I'll start with you. I think identifying data, putting the right safeguards, etc., is a critical part. And then when we did the research, it looks like there are organizations already deploying some of these tools, but only within specific systems and data sets, right? But in your opinion, why is something like this, doing it thoroughly across the ecosystem, and in the sort of in a granular, thorough manner, important to ensure better governance and compliance?
Thank you, Malcolm. So before answering your question, which is quite an interesting one, we first need to understand and see how privacy itself has evolved in India. See, in 2000 is when India passed the IT law, and it's almost after 7 years that India amended the IT Act itself for to include Section 43A, which required companies specifically to protect sensitive personal data. So it's almost after 8 years that the after IT Act itself was introduced that concerns were spiraling, which made India itself to amend the law. Then in 2011 is when India's first real attempt at codifying data protection itself came through. And between 2012 and 2016 is when Aadhaar enrollments expanded, along with when concerns on surveillance peaked. Now, the real turning point in privacy actually came in 2017, when in the retired Justice Puttaswamy case, a 9-judge bench of the Supreme Court ruled that privacy is a fundamental right. It is under 21 of the Constitution, Article 27, Article 21, and it is after that that the real pace picked up. So in 2018, that is when the Justice Sri Krishna Commission drafted the comprehensive data protection framework, but that was similar to Europe's GDPR, but then the bill faced repeated criticism and it underwent several revisions. And it's after 4 years in 2022 that the government, in fact, withdrew the personal data protection bill, stating that a simpler, more comprehensive legal framework was in the offing. Then it is in 2023 that the Digital Personal Data Protection Bill, or the DPDP bill itself, was released for public consultation and passed. So, which is why you call it the DPDP Act of 2023. But further down the line, it's after 2 years that the government, in fact, notified the DPDP rules, which came in November 2025. So, which puts the privacy law into operation and established data protection board. So, if you look at it, it's almost after more than 2 decades that a significant step has been taken to implement something of this scale. And even now, despite notification of the rules, you can see that the courts are still grappling with how privacy works in practice. Because just last week, the Kerala High Court examined concerns around DigiYatra's facial recognition system at airports, in which the bench specifically asked the government to clarify the data protection, whether the data protection board under DPDP has been constituted. So there is still that gray area that exists. It has also saw details to be filed in the affidavit. So there is that gray area that still exists. See, it was not. I mean, the rules were notified in November 2025. It is in March now, and still there is a lot of confusion on how to operationalize it. So it is in this context that our study, MITSMR India and the IDfy study, primarily to, I mean, it was conducted as was mentioned in the presentation earlier, that it was conducted between December and January. That is almost immediately after the notification came through. And the study specifically aims to kind of be a reality check to see whether the privacy is actually showing up in how organizations handle and use data across their operations. Now, the real issue here, based on your question, Malcolm, is that privacy failures, as we see it, it rarely occurs in the system. An organization is keenly watching closely, because these usually happen in the gaps between systems, in overlooked data sets, in third-party integrations, in old repositories that were never cleaned up. And increasingly, in an AI era where data moves further and faster than even the organization realizes. Now, there is also data that often circulates with very little context or accountability. Say, for instance, I think it was just last week that I saw a social media post by a former journalist colleague, in which he said a PR professional just called him checking if he was a journalist. And when he asked the PR person who exactly they wanted to speak to, they said they didn't even have a name and that they got his number from ChatGPT. So that is the scale of, it's kind of a reality check on the situation today. So at the end of the day, I would say that privacy beyond consent matters, because and governance has to specifically cover the full life cycle of data, including how it was collected, who accessed it, why it moved, and whether it was used. I mean, whether that use was proportionate, and when it should have to be deleted. Yes.
Got it, John. No, thank you for sharing like I said, you sort of brought us back to where they started and where we are right
Yes.
now. So thank you for that. Ruma ma'am, I'll turn it to you now. I think, and I want to link it back to where John left it, right? I think, obviously, as we all know, the implications of privacy, if something goes wrong, is very high. As John referenced, I think data has been sort of floating around necessarily, right? Some of this is also the reason why, some of the scams have kicked in, some of the social engineering kicked in, because perhaps data has gone beyond the boundaries of the organization or entity it was supposed to stay at, right? Um, and given therefore something like a bank has to operate in an ecosystem, right? You will have card printers and courier agencies and so on and so forth. How do you sort of think of the shift someone like that needs to make to manage just this broader ecosystem, beyond itself, just given the context of what we've spoken?
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Malcolm. Actually, I'll go back and overlap a little with John. Uh, if you see, we ourselves, as citizens of the country, we are all using the data DPI infrastructure which the government has given us. However, we are very, very lax with our own personal data. You go anywhere, you go to a society to visit your friend, you have to give your mobile number and your name. No reason why I should give it, but I give it. And unquestioningly, I give it. I go to a hotel to stay for the night. Again, he asked me for Aadhaar card. I mean, that is the accepted, although I'm not bound to give it, but we tend to give it in a very, very relaxed and loose manner. And it applies to all of us. So basically, and if you see also, for the common man, this is DPDP, Digital Personal Data Protection. Where is the word of privacy in this? In fact, yesterday I was debating what is the word for privacy per se in Hindi to make people understand what exactly is privacy. So it is a challenge with the citizens of the country also to bring about the awareness. And I think not much has been done either by the government or by organizations to get this culture of privacy across. It's happening in bits and pieces. The courts are taking note. They are saying that privacy is a fundamental right. It is known, but there is no, ourselves are very lax. And coming to your question, see, we have 250,000 plus staff and more than 25,000 branches. So you can imagine maybe 1,000 more third party vendors. And you can imagine the extent to which the data can be compromised. At any point, at any customer point, I have 85,000 customer service points. The State Bank of India has, and it is physically impossible for anyone to ensure unless we go in for technology. Technology has to come in a big way to make us understand the data discovery. Now, all these things, this data, managing the data per se, those were already existing in the systems. This data discovery, data protect, data, where does it lie, or what is the connect between the one data set and the other data set. But however, these may be in fragmented because they have come over the years. Now, we started core banking in 2005 in SBI. All the other banks also did around that time. So the data is accumulating from that time, data which is required and data which is not required. So the DPDP Act puts a lot of onus on the owners of the data. I would say while the customers are the owners of the data, we are the custodians of that data. So we have a huge responsibility as a data fiduciary towards the customer that their data should not be compromised either through physical means or through digital means. So banks are taking a lot of steps through the physically, yes, we are engaging, banks are engaging with their staff so that they bring more awareness of the privacy piece. And as regards digitally, there is already, data management systems are already in place, which are, which are bringing about that awareness amongst the staff. And how do we deal with that data? The last thing is we have many, many vendors who are accessing the data. How do we take care of this third party vendors? And we realized, when we were doing, and I was in the bank, we realized that it is not only that, even vendors who are existing, we had to go back and do the contracts afresh with them, with that they will also be equally responsible for the implementation of the DPDP Act, and they should set up the systems accordingly. Basically, not only have it in the contract, but also check with them on an ongoing basis. So right now we have third party audits, third party vendor audits. We do vendor audit on a periodic basis. It may not happen in the same manner going forward. We may be having a daily routine checking of their systems as to how they are, how access control is happening, not only digital access control but also physical access control, because everywhere there are people are handling this. So if my vendor is allowed some unauthorized personnel to enter their office and do something on their system, even that is my responsibility. I cannot say no, I'm not responsible for this. So all these things are being taken into account, and data management, data information management is already happening in big organizations. The privacy part of it, how do we take only data which is required from the customer? We don't go in for extra data, because we have a tendency to hoard data. So data is the new oil. You hoard oil and then you hoard the data also. So we have this responsibility to not only to the customer but also to our own organizations to minimize, what data we are taking in, and to take necessary steps to protect this data.
Thank
So
you.
that
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. We'll come back for another round. Manoj ji, I think you joined us a little late. If I think if you can hear us, it'd be great if you can quickly introduce yourself. And the question I wanted to pose to you is, I think a lot of part of the survey covered this notion of privacy by design, especially in business and technology. I think a lot of respondents have 87.5 have indicated that they intend to do this, right? Now, obviously, intent is different from actually doing in real life. So, as one of the leading insurers, how are you embedding sort of privacy in your technology and business architecture in sort of a day-to-day basis? Manoj, can you hear us? Okay, we might have to come back to him in a while. John, I'll come back to you again then, and while we wait for Manoj to come back online. So let's maybe pivot a little bit, right? We talked a little bit about saying, hey, there's different parts of this problem. There's consent, of course, that we all know very well and all of that, but there's data discovery, embedding privacy methodologies in business and tech, as well as the third-party vendors, etc. that Madam spoke about. So now let's pivot, right, to say, as you said, organizations have to now gear up. And they have to, in that context, I guess, rely on technology and automation. Um, how do you see, and of course, I'm sure you've seen the global wave and then the Indian wave of this now. So how do you see technology automation sort of enabling privacy operations? Where do you think, it adds sort of the most value or allows for the biggest sort of impact?
Okay, so coming to automation is useful, but only when the underlying data architecture is legible. Otherwise, when you automate, or what you automate is just fragmentation or fragmented data, you will accrue, I mean, any organization will accrue the biggest gains only by creating a kind of a dashboard or a live map of data flows across the enterprise. Otherwise, if there is no clarity in data, then any enterprise which does not have clear data is sure to face problems ahead. So it's always advisable that companies have a clear data map or live map of exactly where data exists, who is accessing it in that sense. Now, automation matters in discovery and classification because you cannot govern what you cannot see. That is primarily. Then it also matters in handling data principal requests because response quality as well as response time will become measurable. Then comes where risk monitoring becomes, matters in risk monitoring because static audits are too slow for dynamic AI and vendor environments. So the real promise of privacy tech is better visibility, I feel, plus faster intervention and less of institutional
Got it. Got it. No, I think you captured it quite well, John. Thank you. Uh, Madam, I'll come to you now. You obviously you work in banking, and for the institution you sort of last represented. There are lots of systems in different business units. A lot of this is fragmented data lying here and there. Obviously there are as you said earlier, there are the core banking system, but also so many and countless perhaps of other, peripheral systems. I think the research also shows that a lot of the respondents believe that, this legacy system constraints and fragmentation means implementing some of the controls are difficult, right? Things such as you want to limit purpose or, perhaps apply the right safeguards around data. So how do somebody like that, a large organization with a lot of these fragmented systems, overcome these challenges so that you have this visibility, you're able to execute the right controls and actions? It could be, deletion, encryption, any of those. But even sort of ensure the right purpose limitation, the right people have access. So how do you do that in a such a fragmented application and technology setup?
See, with this, with so much of data, no, we would be having, I don't know how many petabytes or yottabytes of data with us. So data management systems have been there for the last, I would say, almost for the maybe 5, 6 years. It has picked up very, how to secure the data management system, the data per se. The challenge lies is how do you make it privacy compliant? So for that, as an organization, and I think all organizations are moving towards that. So whenever we are launching maybe a new product or we are launching a new process, then we endeavor that it should pass the test of privacy. So it requires a huge mindset change for the people who are designing the product also, people who are designing the process also. Because earlier, like I said earlier, we would take any data. Yes, this data coming in very good, very good. We will be able to utilize this data later on and capitalize on it for upsell, cross sell. Now we are having to rethink about it whether we really need this data, because the moment I get this data, I have to be responsible for the data storage, data protection. If there is no consent to use the data, I cannot use the data. Earlier, it was once you give the data, I was free to use the data as I wanted it. So that mindset change and systems and processes to ensure that at least the new things which are coming in are going to be privacy compliant. Second, the existing ones are always reviewed, existing processes are reviewed, existing products are reviewed. At the time of the review process, again, we do this privacy, we try to implement the privacy part of it in those, embed it into the system, because that is the only way. You cannot have, think that I will push in, this particular patch on this particular system and try to do the privacy part of it. So mindset change, both in terms of how the data is being used, how to store it, how to delete it. And second is when we are designing the products processes, we have to bring in the element of privacy into it. Also, consent becomes a very big part. And I don't know whether all of you are using the Yono platform or SBI card and many other card companies. They take, a big consent form from you already, that, has already started. But again, it is like, the mutual fund is subjected to risks. We don't understand what the person says. So similar thing happens. So you, at the end of it, if you don't put the tick, you don't go ahead. So you just put the tick without reading into those, all the clauses which are there. So that systems are also, people are forced to, at the end of the day, you're forced to put that tick, so that you want to access your account. So I think banks, particularly who are custodians of this, private and personal data, they owe a lot of responsibility to the data principals to protect this data, and the principals also have a responsibility that they will not share what is not necessary, and they know the purpose for their sharing the data. It's just like sharing your OTP. At the end of the day, you say, I shared my OTP, I thought, XYZ, and I lost money.
True, true, man. Thank you. I think let's move to the last segment of this discussion. I think we spoke about what are the different aspects of this problem. We spoke about where does technology add value and sort of help an organization. I think let's go to the last part of saying, is there strategic value of privacy? And again, I know this was one of the themes that emerged from the, the at least the current version of our research. So start again with you, John. I think, and again, maybe from the research as well as your broader understanding of this space. And again, if you apply saying what is realistic in India versus not, how do you think about quantifying the business value of privacy programs, right? There are so many, dimensions and so on and so forth. So how would you think about it? Where would you start?
I would say that the strategic value of privacy is often misunderstood. Rather, also, I would say that privacy creates value across three layers. First, it reduces downside risks, lowers operating friction, and also builds trust in moments where customer is deciding whether to proceed with consent. Now, also, this is one side of the spectrum. Now, at the other end of the spectrum is, I don't know if you have been following the case in which, case of India Mart, in which it has moved the Calcutta High Court,
Yes, yes.
particularly, yeah. So, in that sense, where it is facing a peculiar problem, in the sense that now much of the search traffic has moved from Google to these AI tools, and in that perspective, uh, India Mart is in a way, it is facing a backlash, not because of its own doing, but because of facts that are beyond its own control. Say what it has argued in court is that I think it has named OpenAI and said that the results that ChatGPT generates does not link it back to India Mart, but it gives results of its rivals, but it doesn't give India Mart. Now, the why doesn't it give India Mart the results? To that, it makes this mention that the US trade representative, USTR, has made some drastic findings against India Mart because I think it sells or it enables the sales of counterfeit products or something in that regard. And now, when you observe it from an India lens, the observation has been made from abroad, from the USTR, but the business that it does primarily relates to local, because it is a B2B marketplace which allows these SMEs to discover sellers on this particular platform. So it's like at the other end, that this end you are more inclined towards privacy, but here you want to market, but you are being deprived of that marketing ability because of something that which exists beyond your control, beyond even the nation's control. So at the end of the day, I mean, this is just an example that I just wanted to mention about both the spectrum. And now coming to your question, privacy is also increasingly shaping discoverability, customer conversion, brand trust, and freedom to innovate without triggering new forms of risk, is what I would say.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you, John, I think, ma'am, I think you obviously come from a business, having run a business and a P&L, etc. And of course, there are notions from the survey saying it helps reduce sales cycles, um, you know, and so on and so forth. But if you think about it in the context of a business that you would run, where do you see actually this trust? I think we talk a lot about trust. Obviously, John mentioned there are some frictions you remove and some operational costs, etc., etc. Right? But I just want to unpack this thing called trust. Because it's also a little vague, saying yes, customers will build trust and all of that. But if you take your business lens to it, how do you really quantify this trust? Is it better conversion, lower churn, is it lifetime value? What exactly is it? How do I sort of think about quantifying something called trust?
See, I come from an organization where trust is the very foundation. So SBI is a 200-year-old organization. It is built on the foundation of trust. And you will find that, there are customers who bank on us simply for that trust. Although we may not be giving the best rate of interest, or we may not be giving the best rate of interest for the advances, a little higher, still they come back to us because of trust. And there is a saying in the market that for home loans, in case you want to buy a home, the best way to go is to go to SBI, because they will be able to give you whether that home is encumbered, unencumbered. If they have done a they have done a verification of your documents, it is perfect. And not because I am from the organization, but I have seen many people withdrawing from purchasing a particular house or a flat just because SBI said no, the papers are not in order, and they have been saved because of that. Because, and when you go down deep, you find yes, there are certain things. This is what is trust. And privacy, when once you put in privacy, it is another opportunity for the BFSI sector,
Think
particularly to to what do you say, to strengthen that trust. So it is not something that you can just forego, because with awareness, people will be asking that whether my data with you is secure. So definitely that investment into keeping the trust of the people, of the customers, is very, very significantly, it will add value. Where the people realize that, okay, my information will not go out of the system, then their trust is bound to follow. And with trust, once trust comes in, then you have business also follow.
interesting. So you're saying it almost amplifies the
It
trust.
amplifies the trust,
Got it.
yes. So
Got it.
I think big organizations, those who have good the challenge is where, you have to make the customer journeys frictionless. You cannot have privacy, saying, oh, because of privacy, I'm going to add these frictions into your journey, which is actually happening.
True.
Frictions have to come in. But there is another school of thought, particularly in respect of the cyber frauds which are happening, that, a little bit of friction needs to come in. Today, money is getting transferred at the fraction of a second from one account to 10 accounts to 10,000 accounts, all in matter of a minute. So there is a class of people who are saying that friction needs to be brought in. And if they are okay with a little bit of friction, if customers are okay with a little bit of friction, then, privacy will become a big, big enabler for getting customers, onboarding customers, and keeping their trust and enhancing our relationship with the customers. It is it's a no, it's a given that privacy will take precedence over any other issues. The
Got
people
it.
look at it that they want to keep their data secure.
No, thanks for demystifying that, ma'am. I think we're at the end of the questions, and maybe as we wrap up, one final rapid fire to both of you. Common question is, it's we already passed the 90-day mark from that 18-month journey. We're now going to approach this so-called 180-day mark or the 6-month mark, right? And there's perhaps 14 odd months to go. So what would your sort of one topmost advice be to organizations, in terms of sort of operationalizing this date on a day-to-day basis? So John, again, start with you. Just your top advice to people or where you
See,
need to be
Malcolm,
by the
yeah.
6 month mark?
Yeah, see, Malcolm, as I told you also in the beginning that there is a lack of clarity, which even the Kerala High Court itself is demanding the government demanding the government of on the Data Protection Board. So it's already 6 months down the line, but still there is that lack of clarity that is something that you can see. Even given the 1.5 year deadline or whatever that they're referring to. Now, a practical 180-day milestone would have been
Yes.
that the organization should have been able to identify its high-risk personal data, map where it sits across its core system and key vendors, define accountable owners, because 6 months is quite a long time in which you should have
True.
done it, and operationalize at least one repeatable workflow, so that whether it is consent enforcement or deletion requests or even third-party monitoring. So that
Got
would
it.
have been the practical solution
Okay,
for
that's
this.
a clear
So
goalpost you
we
laid
should have
out.
had the dashboard already in place. So
Got it.
yes.
No, very clear goalpost. What's your view, ma'am? Where would you say people need to be by the 6 month mark?
Yeah, see, already institutions are working on the data piece. It is not that they started working after the rules came in. When
True.
the
Yes.
act itself came in, there was a lot of work going on in terms of understanding the concepts, who are involved, data discovery, data, where it is lying, how do we discuss the lineage of the data. All that work was already going on. Okay, once the rules have come in, it has given more clarity. However, if you see, even the GDPR took almost 4 years to get implemented in actual. So organizations definitely they are working on it, but as you have said, John, that still there are questions being raised, and it is just a work in progress. People, that awareness has come in. All organizations, they have their data protection officers, they have their data management officers in place. Systems are being aligned, and for very large organizations, it is a challenge even to get enough vendors to look into this piece. So that those systems have to still come in, and the scalability of those systems. So coming from SBI, scalability of any system is very, very much required, because we have whatever yottabytes of data. So we have to be very careful as to which vendor we can onboard for the scalability part. But I think all of us are aware that all organizations have started working. In fact, Meti says, you should have done it yesterday. When I was interacting with someone, he said, the rules came in. I mean, why are you waiting for the rules? What are
Yes.
you going to say different? It is the same going
True.
to be same act. So why did you not act on it?
Very
So that
true. Very true.
of the government, and going by how the government has rolled out the DPI, the public infrastructure which is there, things are going to move very fast, and organizations understand this. So, like you have defined, I should be having a dashboard. I think most organizations who are serious about this DPDP, organizations who are not serious may not have it. And also, I think the boards of these such organizations are also involved, to check out as to what is the progress, because the boards, ultimately, the board of directors will be responsible for this data privacy piece.
Very true. Very true.
So the fine comes in. But
Yes.
at the end of it, we should, I feel what we think is, that, oh my God, 250 crores of penalty. So more
Yeah.
of fear is the privacy piece rather than the fear of, my
Getting
personal data
something
being
else.
compromised.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe
So
two.
it
Yeah.
be that my personal data should not be compromised,
True. True.
or
True.
that of my customers, or that of my uh, stakeholders should not be compromised. Once that understanding comes in, then things will move easier rather than just the fear of 250 crores.
Correct. Correct. No, I think we are at the last few minutes. So two audience questions will pick. John, first one to you. Um, especially for digital first businesses, right? Perhaps e-commerce, food delivery, any of those. do you think is the sense that this can truly become a competitive differentiator where you can drive better engagement and loyalty? What's your sort of thought on that?
I would say for e-commerce, see, going by the statistics in our study, predominantly it was a BFSI, banking financial services. The respondents were completely on the financial services side, but it also included significant e-commerce players. And for e-commerce players, primarily what I would what I guess is the problem would be in getting not only the goods delivered, the exact goods delivered, but then privacy is something that will come into play, or is already in play, in the sense that for e-commerce players, it's primarily to do with guarding who is sending what to whom. So yes, I mean, for e-commerce players, it is necessary to have this system in place to, in a way, what do you call it? To keep data within this. I mean, I'm not exactly getting a recent reference for e-commerce players. Um, mm, E-commerce players, I think it is more related to guarding who orders what. So yeah, I think that is what I think.
Got it. Maybe as we wrap up, ma'am, final question to you it's come from one of the sort of what we got from one of the attendees. When you think of now on one side, there is this data privacy, etc. On the other side, now people are saying use AI, more sophisticated analytics, so on and so forth. How do you sort of tie up the two, right? Obviously, organizations have to ensure privacy, all of those things. On the other hand, sort of push to, deploy sort of more AI tools, etc. So how do you tie up privacy and data governance with and being very tight on that with also being advancing quickly on AI? How do the two come together?
See, AI, already many organizations are using AI for for a lot of in my sector, for a lot of upselling, cross-selling. Uh, we digital footprints are being mapped, your banking footprints are being mapped, whether physical, digital, they are being mapped for to enable us to get a full picture of the of what our customers want and what our customers need. However, what is very important now is to ensure that the customer is aware of and he gives consent in an informed manner. So we cannot take it for granted that whatever we were doing with the data in the earlier days can be done right now. But I'm sure that as the days progress, the customer will also be aware that yes, this organization is not going to use my data in a wrong format. Once that confidence, once that trust comes in, then use of AI will definitely help in managing the privacy part of it also. However, but he said, like John said in the beginning, somebody told him that your number came up in the chat GPT. That is something, which is very, very alarming. So far,
Correct.
what was alarming was, I get a call from many different banks saying that, hi, Ruma, how are you? And it goes on to, I'm giving you a free lifetime card. And it tells me, hi, Ruma ji. So, well, this sort of, somewhere my data has leaked out.
Correct.
My telephone number has leaked out. And I cannot find out who has leaked out. Number one. Number two, I cannot blame anyone because I have been giving my phone number to so many people. The
So
guy who comes e-commerce said, no, e-commerce guy who comes, Madam, phone number DJ. So we give you the phone number. The moment there is an e-commerce site with discount, I give everything. to get that discount. I give my phone number, I give my address, I give everything. So, like I said in the beginning, that awareness of where to share our personal data needs to come in very, very strongly. Then the ecosystem will also, merge to create that privacy controls. But till
Correct.
as users of any service, e-commerce service, financial service, we also have to be aware as consumers, and of course the banks and the e-commerce people will also take necessary guardrails. They will be forced to fit in guardrails to protect the data of their consumers. And in the process, it's an ongoing process. It cannot happen overnight. So with that, in the process, it will evolve. Just like how GDPR has evolved over 4 years. Although
True.
although in those countries there was a lot of awareness about privacy. So here in our country, we are lacking that awareness about privacy.
True. True.
So it's going to take that much of time, and it's an ongoing process.
Yeah. No, thank you to both John and Ruma ma'am for a very engaging conversation. I hope you, all the attendees, found this useful. I think, like I said, we released this first of its kind sort of literature in the space. We'll continue to aspire to do more, hopefully in collaboration with MIT, SMR, and other like-minded institutions. I think, as we said at the start, the journey is beginning. A long way to go. And I hope this webinar acts as a food for thought for all of us in on that journey. But I really appreciate everyone joining, and thank you again to John and Ruma ma'am for making the time to join us today.
Thank you,
That's it from
Malcolm.
our side.
Thank you, Malcolm. Thank you, John. It's been nice interacting
Nice
with you.
talking.
Yes, it was amazing
I hope
conversation.
the webinar attendees found it a little bit useful and a little bit thoughtful.
Most definitely. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.